Imani Sterling's wrench tightened, sending a controlled spark across the server rack. With a low hum, the critical system roared back to life, flooding the cold Thorntech room with a triumphant glow. Her hand, still vibrating with residual current, brushed against something soft and utterly out of place, a faded plush toy. It was Starlight, Lena's favorite stuffed celestial bear, a gift from Jamal. Imani's breath hitched, a sharp pang of grief piercing through her exhaustion. She remembered Jamal's booming laugh as he handed it to Lena, his little girl's eyes wide with delight. What was Lena's toy doing here, tucked away in the sterile guts of Thorntech, months after Jamal's sudden, unexplained death? A cold knot of confusion tightened in Imani's chest, pushing past the familiar ache of loss. Nothing about Jamal's death, or this toy, felt right. Dawn painted the sky in bruised purples as Imani slumped into her van, the plush toy clutched in her hand. Her phone buzzed, a harsh vibration against the quiet morning. Marcus Blackwood. "Sell your share, Imani, before I take it all." His words, laced with abusive entitlement, were a constant threat. Her dream of buying out her ex-partner, of securing her own electrical business, felt impossibly distant. Lena depended on her, and the dwindling funds barely covered rent, let alone the legal fees Marcus was racking up. The weight of it all, a crushing burden, made her tired eyes burn. Absent-mindedly, Imani's thumb traced the plush toy's worn fabric. Her finger caught on a tiny, almost invisible seam near Starlight's back. Curiosity, a spark that always ignited in her engineer's mind, compelled her to investigate. With a practiced twist, the seam gave way, revealing a small, meticulously hidden USB drive. Her heart hammered. A surge of apprehension, mixed with a desperate flicker of hope, coursed through her. Plugging it into her old laptop, a single encrypted file glowed on the screen. For Imani only. J. Jamal. Imani's fingers, still smelling faintly of ozone from the data center, trembled slightly as she plugged the small USB drive into her ancient laptop. The screen flickered to life, the familiar hum, a comforting counterpoint to the storm raging outside her mind. A single folder appeared. Inside, two files, starlight.mp4 and readme.txt. The video was clearly encrypted, a digital fortress Jamal had built. The text file offered a cryptic hint. "Remember our brightest star, sis. Her name unlocks everything." A soft rustle from the next room. Lena was stirring. Imani's heart, already a drum against her ribs, tightened. Lena's small voice drifted into the living room. "Auntie Imani? Where's my Starlight?" Imani froze, the words echoing in her ears. "Mitroli's Lena." It was Jamal's pet name for his daughter, a secret whispered between them, a term of endearment that had always brought a soft smile to his face. A bittersweet ache bloomed in Imani's chest. He'd named the file after his child, after her child. With renewed determination, Imani typed the password. The screen shimmered, then the video file opened. Jamal's face, haggard and strained, filled the screen. His eyes, usually so bright, held a haunted anxiety. "Imani," he began, his voice a low, urgent whisper, "if you're seeing this, it means I'm gone. And Silas Thorne, he's responsible." Imani gasped, a cold dread seeping into her bones. Jamal's image flickered, his voice gaining a desperate intensity. "Thorne isn't who he seems, sis. He's been manipulating everything, using Thorntech's servers for things no one should ever know." His words tumbled out, a torrent of carefully gathered information, illicit data harvesting, shell companies obscuring vast sums, whispers of political leverage. He called it Project Chimera. Jamal revealed, his voice laced with disgust. A system designed to control, to corrupt. It's far more dangerous than anyone realizes. Imani's hands clenched into fists, her nails digging into her palms. This wasn't just a disgruntled employee's rant. This was a brother's dying exposé. Jamal hadn't just worked at Thorntech. He'd been investigating it, risking everything to uncover the truth. The video ended abruptly, leaving Imani in stunned silence. Lena padded into the room, rubbing sleep from her eyes, clutching the plush toy. "Auntie Imani," she whispered, her innocent gaze fixed on the laptop screen. "Is Daddy coming back?" Imani's breath hitched. She looked at the faded toy, then at Lena's trusting face, a fierce, primal protectiveness surging through her. Jamal's final words, etched into the video's metadata, flickered across the screen. "Protect Lena. Expose him. Trust no one from Thorne Tech." Imani pulled Lena into a tight hug, burying her face in her niece's soft hair. "No, baby," she murmured, her voice thick with emotion. "Daddy's not coming back, but we're going to make sure he gets justice." She stared at the paused image of Jamal's weary face, a silent vow forming in her heart. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about Lena. It was about everything. Imani sat hunched over her old laptop, the screen's pale glow reflecting in her tired eyes. Jamal's warning, "Trust no one from Thorne Tech," echoed in her mind. She started with Silas Thorne himself, sifting through a deluge of meticulously crafted articles and corporate press releases. The man was a titan, a visionary, a philanthropist. Every public profile glowed with polished praise, painting a portrait of unimpeachable success. There wasn't a single whisper of scandal, not a hint of the ruthlessness Jamal had spoken of. Next, she searched for Project Chimera. The results were even more unsettling. Nothing. Not a single mention, no obscure forum posts, no leaked documents. It was as if the project simply didn't exist, scrubbed clean from the digital ether. Imani's jaw tightened. This wasn't just a lack of information. It was an asterisk absence, a void that spoke volumes. A strange pop-up, a quick flash of garbled code, flickered across her screen, then vanished before she could even register it. Her breath hitched. Was it a coincidence? Or was someone watching her even now? The thought sent a cold tendril of unease coiling in her gut. The internet, usually a vast ocean of information, felt like a carefully constructed wall. The fluorescent lights of the police precinct hummed, a sterile contrast to the chaos brewing inside Imani. Detective Anya Sharma, a woman with sharp, intelligent eyes that seemed perpetually weary, listened patiently as Imani recounted Jamal's video message, Thorne's alleged corruption, and the haunting secrecy of Project Chimera. Imani even produced the USB drive, a tangible piece of her brother's final plea. Sharma examined it, then placed it carefully on her desk. "Ms. Sterling," she began, her voice measured, "I understand this is incredibly difficult. Losing a loved one unexpectedly, it can lead to theories, to searching for answers where there might not be any." She cited Thorne's spotless reputation, his powerful connections, the lack of any concrete, actionable evidence beyond Jamal's encrypted word. "His death was ruled an accident, Miss Sterling. A tragic, unforeseen heart attack." Imani felt a familiar wave of frustration, a heavy sense of being dismissed. Sharma was polite, professional, but beneath the veneer, Imani saw the bureaucratic wall, impenetrable and indifferent. She wasn't just fighting a corrupt CEO. She was fighting a system already bought and paid for. Imani was replacing a faulty breaker panel in her cluttered electrical workshop when the shadow fell across the concrete floor. Marcus Blackwood, her ex-partner and the bane of her existence, leaned against the doorframe, a sneer playing on his lips. "Still playing with wires, Imani? Thought you'd be too busy with your little fantasies about Jamal." His words were a low blow, designed to wound. "I'm busy keeping this business afloat, Marcus. Something you never bothered with." She straightened, wiping grease from her brow with the back of her hand. He held up a stack of legal papers. "Sign these, your share. I'm buying you out. Or rather, taking you out." His eyes narrowed, a dark glint in them. "And if you resist, if you keep neglecting things for ghost stories, I'll make sure Lena knows exactly what kind of protector you are. Maybe she'd be better off with someone stable." The threat hung in the air, cold and menacing. Imani's heart hammered, but her gaze met his unwavering. "You won't get Lena. And you won't get this business. Not while I'm breathing." Her voice was a low, dangerous growl. Marcus's sneer faltered, a flicker of surprise in his eyes before he turned and left, his words echoing in the silence. "You'll regret this, Imani." Later that night, tucked away in the cramped apartment, Imani tried to shake off Marcus's venom. Lena, curled on the couch with her faded plush toy, pointed a small finger toward the street. "Mommy, that car's been there forever!" Imani glanced out the window. A dark sedan, unremarkable, parked a block away. Too far to be obvious, too close to be random. Her electrician's eye, trained to spot anomalies in complex systems, suddenly focused on a subtle ripple in the wallpaper near an outlet, a faint, almost invisible discoloration. Not water damage. Not age. It was a disturbance, expertly hidden but there. A tiny, almost imperceptible hum reached her ears. A frequency too low for most to notice, but unmistakable to her. Her blood ran cold. He knew his family would show their true nature once he was gone. Jamal's words. His warning. Imani scooped Lena into her arms, holding her tight. They were being watched. The hunt for justice just got personal. Imani knew she needed to fight smarter, not harder. The hum of the servers was a familiar melody, a white noise Imani had grown to understand better than most people understood their own thoughts. Tonight, it felt like a lullaby to a predator. She moved through the Thorne Tech data center in a borrowed uniform, a temporary access badge clipped to her chest, feigning ignorance of its past, of her brother Jamal's ghost that lingered in every sterile corridor. Her mission wasn't to fix the minor power fluctuation she'd been called for. It was to find the digital breadcrumbs Jamal had promised. Her handheld diagnostic device, a custom-built marvel of her own design, scanned the network with silent precision as she worked, its tiny screen a kaleidoscope of data. She felt like a spider, weaving a delicate web of inquiry across Thorne's vast, gleaming empire. Then, a flicker. A minute anomaly in an old, rarely accessed server rack. A hidden, encrypted partition. Bingo, she thought, a cold thrill running through her veins. Jamal, you always knew where to hide the good stuff. Back in the relative sanctuary of her workshop, the hidden partition became her obsession. Imani worked through the night, the rhythmic click of her keyboard, the only sound in the otherwise still room. Jamal's code was a labyrinth, a testament to his brilliant, paranoid mind, each layer more intricate than the last. But Imani was her brother's sister, an engineer who understood the elegance of complexity. Hours bled into dawn, her fingers flying across the keys, her eyes burning with concentration. Then, the final firewall fell. Her screens exploded with data, financial records, shell company registrations, encrypted communication logs, all cascading like a digital waterfall. "Oh, Jamal," she whispered, her voice thick with awe and horror, "you weren't just digging, you were building an entire ghost network." The sheer scale of Thorne's illicit activities, money laundering schemes so vast they made her head spin, political corruption reaching into the highest offices, it was all there, laid bare. The intellectual excitement quickly curdled into a cold, burning rage. Among the meticulously cataloged files, Imani found it. Medical reports for Jamal, detailing a subtle, untraceable heart condition that had worsened rapidly in his final months. Then, the manipulated toxicology screens, showing no trace of the digitalis Jamal had suspected. Finally, communication logs between Silas Thorne and a Dr. Elias Vance, a prominent cardiologist with a history of quiet ethical breaches. The messages were chillingly casual, discussing adjustments to Jamal's treatment, managing his symptoms, and ensuring his exit looked natural. Imani stared at the screen, her breath catching in her throat. The sterile data, the carefully chosen words, they painted a picture of cold, calculated cruelty. Her brother hadn't just died. He had been slowly, deliberately, murdered. A single tear tracked a path down her cheek. But it wasn't just grief. It was the spark of a fire, a fierce need for justice that would not be quenched. The next morning, Imani walked into Detective Sharma's office, the USB drive heavy in her hand. This time, she wasn't just a grieving sister with a hunch. She was an engineer with undeniable evidence. She laid out the selected files, a fraction of Jamal's ghost network, but enough to be damning. Financial transfers to shell companies, emails detailing political favors, and a redacted version of the communication logs concerning Dr. Vance. Sharma, usually so composed, visibly stiffened as she reviewed the documents. Her brow furrowed, her eyes darting between Imani's steady gaze and the damning proof on the screen. This is more than just a disgruntled employee, Miss Sterling, Sharma admitted, her voice low. This is a full-blown criminal enterprise. She agreed to discreetly begin an investigation, her skepticism replaced by professional concern. But be careful, Imani, Sharma warned, her eyes meeting hers. Thorne's reach is long. And now you've touched it. Meanwhile, in his opulent Thorne-Tech office, Silas Thorne was a coiled viper. His current head of security, a nervous man named Mr. Davies, stammered through a report on the subtle network anomaly Imani had created. Thorne listened, his face a mask of controlled fury. Asterisk glitch, Mr. Davies? In my perfectly engineered data center? His voice was silk, but the edge of steel cut through the air. He dismissed Davies with a flick of his wrist, the man scurrying out like a beaten dog. Incompetence is a luxury I cannot afford. Thorne leaned back, his calculating eyes narrowing. The anomaly was too precise, too deliberate for a random malfunction. Someone was digging. Someone was probing the intricate layers of his digital empire. He felt a familiar chill, a ghost from the past whispering in the sterile silence. Jamal had been good. Too good. But Jamal was gone. This new threat, whoever they were, would learn the price of loyalty and the cost of silence. Late that night, in the quiet solitude of her workshop, Imani felt the digital tendrils reaching for her. Increased network activity around her personal systems. Subtle probes testing her firewalls, searching for an opening. Thorne was hunting. She wasn't surprised. Jamal's warning echoed in her mind. Trust no one from Thorne-Tech. He had known this would happen. He had anticipated Thorne's ruthless retaliation. Imani watched the visualizations of the digital hunt unfold on her screen, a complex dance of packets and protocols. Thorne was a master, but Jamal had been a genius. The thought brought a grim smile to her lips, a spark of defiance in the encroaching darkness. He's hunting me, asterisk, she thought, the words a cold dread, but also a fierce resolve. Good, let him. He doesn't know who he's up against. The hunt was officially on, and Imani Sterling was ready. The police evidence room, usually a sterile, quiet space, felt like a tomb tonight. Detective Sharma, her face etched with exhaustion, slid a thick dossier across the metal table. Thorne's reach isn't just financial, Imani. It's systemic. The folder spilled open to reveal a web of connections. Judges with inexplicable asset increases, city council members voting against public interest, even high-ranking police brass with suspicious ties. Red strings, like veins of corruption, connected Silas Thorne's name to every compromised official. Imani stared, a cold dread seeping into her bones. Any official move, any legal challenge, would be met with a brick wall of Thorne's making. Her brother, Jamal, hadn't been paranoid. He'd seen the monster lurking in the shadows, understood the futility of trusting a system already bought and paid for. The weight of it pressed down on her, an invisible hand choking off hope. Back in her workshop, the hum of her laptop was a stark contrast to the silence that now filled Imani's mind. She dove deeper into Jamal's files, unlocking another encrypted layer labeled Chimera_manifest. What she found made her stomach churn. Project Chimera wasn't just data manipulation. It was a sophisticated algorithm designed to craft disinformation campaigns, sway public opinion, and even rig local elections. Simulated news headlines flashed across the screen, detailing fabricated scandals that had ruined careers, carefully crafted social media trends that had ignited public outrage. Thorne wasn't just a criminal, he was a puppeteer, pulling the strings of democracy itself. Imani felt a moral outrage burn through her despair. This was bigger than Jamal, bigger than her business. This was a threat to the very fabric of society, and she, a simple electrician, had stumbled upon its horrifying truth. The shrill ring of her workshop bell announced an unwelcome visitor. Marcus Blackwood, flanked by a slick, expensive lawyer, stood framed in the doorway, a smug smirk on his face. "Time's up, Imani," he drawled, pushing a stack of legal documents across her workbench. "Sign these. Your share of the business, mine." 24 hours, or I'll move to declare you an unfit guardian. Lena deserves stability, not a mother chasing ghosts. The threat hung in the air, cold and calculated. Imani's heart ached, a fierce protectiveness for Lena, warring with the knowledge of the greater fight. Her business, her dream, was a small price to pay for justice. She met Marcus's sneering gaze, her voice low but unwavering. "You won't get Lena, and you won't get away with this." The lawyer frowned. Marcus's smirk faltered, replaced by a flicker of surprise. That night, a cold dread clung to Imani as she gathered Lena's things. The subtle patterns of surveillance she'd noticed earlier had intensified. A car idled down the street, its engine too quiet, its presence too still. Just as she clipped Lena's plush toy to her backpack, the apartment lights flickered, then died, plunging them into oppressive darkness. A moment later, a shrill, piercing gas leak alarm blared. Imani's electrician's instinct screamed, "Sky is blue." Thorne was making his move. She grabbed the emergency gas mask she kept hidden, pressing it to Lena's face, her heart hammering against her ribs. Shadows moved outside the apartment door, the faint scrape of metal against wood. They were trying to breach. "Stay quiet, baby," Imani whispered, her voice barely audible over the alarm. "Mommy's got a back exit." The air in the disused storage unit was stale, but the heavy steel door locked with a satisfying thud. Imani sank onto a worn pallet, Lena already asleep beside her, the plush toy clutched tight. Her makeshift sanctuary was sparse, just a few tools, a cot, and a small emergency kit, but for now, it was safe. Minutes later, a soft knock, a pre-arranged signal. Detective Sharma entered, her face grim, eyes wide with horror, as Imani recounted the attack. "He tried to kill you," Sharma whispered, the reality of Thorne's ruthlessness finally sinking in. "And, Lena, I'm in, Imani. Whatever it takes, we're bringing this monster down." Imani met the detective's gaze, a fragile sense of relief mixing with fierce determination. She had an ally, a real one, but the stakes had never been higher. Her makeshift safe house, a secure storage unit, now felt like a war room. Imani and Detective Sharma hunched over Imani's laptop, the screen a dizzying maze of code and schematics. Days of sifting through Jamal's encrypted files had led them to this, a hidden partition, a final, intricate layer. Imani's fingers, usually so sure with a wrench, trembled slightly as she opened the file. It was a complete blueprint of the Thorne Tech data center, not as the public knew it, but as Jamal had painstakingly mapped it. Every server rack, every conduit, every ventilation shaft was annotated with his familiar, precise handwriting. But then, new details emerged: secret access tunnels, hidden control rooms, and a section labeled Master Override System. Imani gasped, a cold shock mingled with dawning awe. Jamal hadn't just secured data. He had turned the entire data center into a weapon. "He built a fortress," Imani whispered, tracing glowing network lines on the 3D model now projected from her laptop onto the grimy wall of the storage unit. Redundant power grids, an isolated network, even micro-EMP shielding for critical systems. She explained how Jamal had designed the entire complex to be controlled from a single hidden point, a silent command center buried deep within its core. This wasn't just a building housing servers. It was a digital behemoth, an intricate machine of his own making, waiting for the right hands to unleash its power. Sharma, usually so stoic, leaned closer, her eyes wide with professional awe. "He didn't just document Thorne's crimes, Imani. He built the means to dismantle his empire from the inside out." A determined glint flickered in Imani's eyes. The tables had just turned. That night, with Lena asleep on a cot nearby, Imani found it: the Cascade Failure Protocol, a single, stark red button icon on the schematic. Its description was chillingly precise: designed to wipe Thorne Tech's entire network, erasing all data, both illicit and legitimate. It would expose Thorne, yes, but at the cost of countless innocent businesses, critical infrastructure, and private citizen data. The moral weight of it pressed down on Imani, heavy as the debt she carried. Justice for Jamal, but at any cost? Sharma, watching Imani's tormented expression, placed a hand on her shoulder. That's a nuclear option, Imani. It'll be a wasteland. Jamal might have built it, but he put the choice in your hands for a reason. Imani stared at Lena's peaceful, sleeping face, the red button glowing ominously on the screen. The next morning, Lena, oblivious to the digital war raging around her, stacked brightly colored blocks into a precarious tower. "Mommy," she asked, her voice clear and innocent, "do good guys break things to fix them?" The question hit Imani like a jolt of pure current. She thought of Jamal, of his patient lessons in the workshop. A true engineer builds, Imani. They don't just destroy. The words echoed in her mind, a guiding light through the moral fog. Lena's simple wisdom cut through the complexity. There had to be a way to expose Thorne's corruption, to avenge Jamal, without causing widespread collateral damage. Her brother had built a fortress, not a bomb. Imani looked at Lena, a fierce, renewed determination hardening her gaze. "We don't use the cascade failure," Imani declared, her voice firm, resolute. Sharma nodded, a subtle smile of relief gracing her lips. Imani then moved to the whiteboard, her hand moving with confident strokes as she sketched diagrams and flowcharts. "We use Jamal's network to isolate Thorne's illicit data. His blackmail files, the manipulated election results, the murder evidence, and we expose it publicly, directly to the world." The plan was intricate, audacious, but brilliantly precise. They would lure Thorne to the data center, making him believe he was walking into a simple negotiation. Instead, his own digital fortress would become his trap. Sharma, now fully committed, pulled out her phone. "I'll coordinate with my federal contact. Tell me everything. We're gonna need perfect timing." The plan was set. The sterile air of Thorne Tech's server room hummed, a familiar symphony of cooling fans and whirring drives. Imani, in a borrowed technician's jumpsuit 2 sizes too big, moved with the practiced efficiency of a ghost. Her heart hammered a frantic rhythm against her ribs, but her hands were steady as she plugged a small, custom-built device into a network port. This wasn't a repair, it was an invasion. Her brother Jamal had designed a dormant program, a digital breadcrumb trail that only she could activate. With a subtle keystroke, a flicker barely perceptible on a diagnostic screen, the glitch was unleashed. It was a controlled chaos, designed to mimic a critical data leak, an encrypted whisper destined for one recipient only, Silas Thorne. Imani pulled her hood lower, a triumphant smirk playing on her lips. The bait was set. Silas Thorne's penthouse was a monument to his ego, chrome, glass, and a breathtaking view of the city he believed he owned. He sat, swathed in a silk robe, a half-empty glass of single malt on the polished obsidian table. The encrypted message flashed across his private tablet. A data leak? He scoffed, a dismissive wave of his hand scattering the ice in his glass. Some disgruntled low-level tech, no doubt, trying for a quick payday. Blackmail was beneath him, a nuisance to be crushed. He'd deal with it personally. At the data center, a public display of authority would remind everyone who truly held power. His arrogance, thick as the city smog, blinded him to the intricate web Imani had woven. He believed he was walking into a negotiation. He was, in fact, walking into his own trap. Across the city, the pieces of Imani's intricate puzzle clicked into place. At a discreet distance from Thorne Tech, Detective Anya Sharma barked commands into her radio, her voice crisp and urgent. Eagle 1, perimeter secured. No unauthorized ingress or egress. Alpha and Bravo teams, hold positions. Meanwhile, Thorne's security detail, a convoy of black SUVs, descended upon the data center like a swarm of angry wasps establishing a lockdown. Lights flared, gates clanged shut. But far from the main entrance, nestled within a forgotten service tunnel, Imani guided Lena through a concealed passage. The air was cool, smelling of damp earth and old concrete. "Almost there, Starlight," Imani whispered, her grip firm on Lena's small hand. All players were now in position, the stage set for a reckoning. The hidden control room was Jamal's masterpiece, a stark contrast to Thorntech's gleaming facade. Rough-hewn rock walls met sleek, glowing consoles, a testament to raw ingenuity. Imani's breath hitched. This was where Jamal had worked, where he'd planned. She moved to the central console, her fingers dancing across the interface. With a series of confident commands, screens flickered to life, displaying a real-time map of the entire data center, its power grids, its security systems, its hidden passages. She was no longer just an electrician. She was the architect of this digital fortress. Lena, wide-eyed, pointed to a small, framed photo on a dusty shelf. "Daddy?" Imani nodded, a poignant smile touching her lips. "Yes, baby. Daddy made all of this. For us." Silas Thorne strode into the Thorntech lobby, his expensive suit impeccable, his face a mask of controlled fury. His security detail fanned out, weapons visible but holstered. He expected a cowering employee, a desperate plea. Instead, the building's PA system crackled to life, Imani's voice echoing through the vast, sterile space. "Welcome to your trap, Mr. Thorne." Thorne froze. The words hit him like a physical blow. His arrogant composure shattered, replaced by a flicker of confusion, then dawning horror. He spun around, his eyes darting to the lobby's surveillance cameras, then to the silent monitors displaying his own bewildered face. He was the hunter, but tonight, he was the prey. The hum of the data center, usually a constant, sterile drone, now seemed to pulse with Imani's will. From Jamal's hidden control room, she was a conductor, orchestrating a symphony of chaos designed for one man. "Lockdown protocols. Active," she commanded, her voice steady as she pressed a series of holographic buttons. On the multi-screen display, red indicators flashed across the Thorntech floor plans, exits sealed with reinforced blast doors. Thorne's security detail, spread throughout various server rooms, suddenly found themselves trapped in digital cages, their frustrated shouts echoing faintly through the system's microphones. Then came the psychological assault. Imani flickered the fluorescent lights in Thorne's immediate vicinity, plunged entire corridors into sudden, disorienting darkness, then flooded them with blinding white. The HVAC system whined, dropping temperatures to an Arctic chill, then blasting heat until sweat beaded on the monitors of Thorne's trapped men. Lena, beside her, watched the feeds with wide, unblinking eyes. "The bad man looks confused, Mommy," she observed, her innocent voice cutting through the technical jargon. "He doesn't like it when things don't work." Imani smiled, a cold, hard curve of her lips. "No, baby. He doesn't. And he's about to learn who's really in charge." Silas Thorne, cornered in his lavish main office, was a picture of a predator stripped of his fangs. His face, usually a mask of calm superiority, was a contorted mess of anger and fear as the lights flickered around him. He barked orders into a dead comms unit, his voice strained. Then, the office's hidden PA system crackled to life. It wasn't Imani's voice. It was Jamal's. Asterisk. If you're hearing this, Imani, asterisk, Jamal's recorded voice began, clear and steady. Asterisk. "It means I failed. But I didn't fail without a fight. Silas, you think you're untouchable. You think you're smarter than everyone else. But I saw you. I knew you." Thorne froze, his eyes wide with a terror that transcended the physical. The ghost of the man he'd murdered was speaking to him. The betrayal, the meticulous planning, it was all laid bare in Jamal's calm, posthumous accusation. A chill ran down Imani's spine, a vindictive satisfaction that curdled into a cold, hard resolve. When Jamal's recording faded, Imani's voice filled the stunned silence, amplified, resonant with righteous fury. "He knew what you did, Silas. Every twisted secret, every life you destroyed. And now, so does everyone else." On Jamal's main console, a timer hit 0. Imani pressed a final key, a cascade of encrypted data packets launching into the digital ether. This wasn't just about making Thorne feel exposed. It was about making him, Lou Casque, exposed. Globally. Initiating public data release, she announced, her eyes fixed on the external news feeds that popped up on a separate monitor. Almost instantly, the first headlines blinked into existence. Thorne Tech CEO linked to massive financial fraud. Project Chimera, election manipulation scheme exposed. Detective Sharma's voice crackled through their secure comms. Imani, it's happening. News channels are breaking the story. Social media is exploding. They're calling for Thorne's arrest. Imani watched with a grim satisfaction as Thorne Tech's meticulously curated public image dissolved into a maelstrom of outrage. Stock prices plummeted. Public figures linked to Thorne scrambled to issue denials. The carefully constructed facade of the tech titan crumbled in real time. He's cornered, Imani murmured, a triumphant glint in her eyes. From every angle. One screen on Jamal's console showed a live feed of Imani's old workshop. Marcus Blackwood, oblivious to the digital inferno engulfing Thorne, was celebrating his perceived victory. He stood amidst the tools and equipment, a bottle of cheap champagne in hand, his face flushed with crude triumph. Finally, all mine, he slurred, taking a swig. Imani's fingers danced across the controls. Not quite, Marcus. She activated the workshop's remote security system. Steel shutters slammed down over the windows. The main door clanged shut. A piercing alarm blared, echoing through the empty street. Marcus dropped his bottle, his face draining of color as he realized he was trapped. Within minutes, the distant wail of sirens grew louder. Police cruisers from Sharma's precinct screeched to a halt outside. Officers, led by a stern-faced lieutenant, battered down the workshop door. Marcus Blackwood, the lieutenant announced, holding up a warrant. You're under arrest for multiple counts of fraud and embezzlement. Jamal Sterling's records are some or boater. Imani watched Marcus, handcuffed and bewildered, being led away. One less shadow in her life. One more piece of justice served. Silas Thorne was broken. The feeds from his office showed him slumped in his chair, the arrogance completely gone, replaced by a hollow despair. Imani decided it was time for the final push. Her voice, calm and cutting, filled his office through the PA system. Silas, your empire is crumbling. Your crimes are public. Your reputation, destroyed. But there's one last thing you can do for yourself. Thorne looked up, a flicker of desperate hope in his eyes. What do you want? A full, public confession, Imani stated, her voice unwavering. Every detail. Jamal's murder, Project Chimera, the blackmail, everything. Confess, and I'll ensure the remaining evidence is handled through official channels, minimizing your exposure to certain other forces. She knew Thorne had connections far beyond what the public understood. She was offering him a choice between a calculated fall and utter annihilation. He hesitated. Then his shoulders slumped. He saw the trap, the precision, the utter lack of escape. He saw no other option. Activate global broadcast, Imani commanded, her heart hammering against her ribs. On the monitors, Thorne Tech's global servers lit up, transmitting a live feed from Thorne's office to every major news outlet, every social media platform, every screen on the planet. Silas Thorne, the once unassailable tech mogul, looked directly into the camera. His voice, hoarse and trembling, confessed to Jamal Sterling's murder, detailed the horrors of Project Chimera, and laid bare the intricate web of corruption he had woven. As he spoke, federal agents, coordinated by Sharma's trusted contacts, breached Thorne's office. They moved with practiced efficiency, securing Thorne and his remaining, bewildered men. Imani watched, a silent tear tracing a path down her cheek, a tear not of sadness, but of profound relief and triumph. Justice. For Jamal. For Lena. The nightmare was finally over. The harsh, artificial glow of the data center's emergency lights was gone, replaced by the soft, diffused light of dawn filtering through the few windows in the upper levels. Imani emerged from Jamal's hidden control room, Lena's small hand clutching hers, blinking against the new light. Detective Sharma met them, her face etched with exhaustion but alight with a grim satisfaction. Federal agents swarmed the data center, a hive of methodical activity, securing servers, cataloging evidence, leading away Thorne's pale-faced conspirators in handcuffs. The bad man? Lena whispered, looking around at the flurry of activity. Imani squeezed her hand, a wave of profound relief washing over her. "He's gone, Starlight!" "And he won't be coming back." Sharma offered Imani a tired, appreciative smile. "You did good, Sterling. Really good." Weeks later, a nondescript package arrived at Imani's new rented workshop. A temporary space, but one buzzing with the familiar scent of solder and ozone. It was from Jamal's estate lawyer. Inside, Imani found not a single bill, but a deed. A small, fully equipped electrical workshop, nestled in a quiet industrial park across town. Jamal had bought it years ago, quietly, meticulously, a contingency for a future he'd foreseen. A handwritten note, in his familiar, precise script, fluttered out. Asterisk, build something amazing, sis, for Lena and for you. Don't let anyone tell you your spark isn't enough. Imani's vision blurred. The grief was still there, a dull ache, but now it was interwoven with a fierce, burning gratitude. Jamal, even in death, had given her a new beginning. Months later, in a sleek, modern conference room, Imani Sterling stood before his small, dedicated board. Thorne's seized assets, the ill-gotten gains of his digital empire, had been repurposed. The Sterling Foundation for Digital Ethics, Imani announced, the name echoing with purpose. Its mission: to support whistleblowers, fund investigations into tech corruption, and provide legal aid to those silenced by powerful entities. Sharma, now a close friend and the Foundation's security advisor, nodded proudly. Lena, perched on an oversized chair, her legs swinging, held up a drawing. "And we can teach kids about computers so they don't get tricked by bad people," she piped up, her innocent suggestion met with warm smiles. Imani looked at her niece, then at the Foundation's crisp new logo, a stylized circuit board intertwined with a rising sun. A new legacy, built from the ashes of old corruption. Back in her new workshop, the space Jamal had gifted her, Imani stood over a workbench, Lena beside her, both peering at a small circuit board. "See, Starlight?" Imani explained, pointing with a multimeter. "The current flows here, making the light turn on." Lena's brow furrowed in concentration, echoing Jamal's own focus. She clutched the faded plush toy, now a comforting talisman. "Daddy would be proud?" she asked, her voice small. Imani knelt, pulling Lena into a hug. "More than you know, my love. He taught me that true strength isn't just about making things work. It's about understanding how they work, and using that knowledge to build, to protect, to make things right." Lena nodded, a soft smile spreading across her face. Jamal's lessons, passed through Imani, were taking root. The community center buzzed with the energy of a job fair for at-risk youth. Imani, poised and confident, stood on a small stage, her voice carrying an authority born of hard-won experience. "I used to be scared," she confessed, her gaze sweeping the room. "Scared of losing my business, scared of not being enough. But then I remembered what my brother taught me. Intellect is your most powerful weapon." Afterward, she spotted a shy young woman, her eyes bright with a spark Imani recognized, an aspiring electrician, clutching a worn textbook. Imani approached, offering a warm smile. "The Foundation has resources for people like you," she said, pressing a small, perfectly polished screwdriver into the young woman's hand. "This is the beginning, not the end. Trust yourself. You're stronger than you know." The young woman's awestruck face was a mirror of Imani's own past, a promise of future she could help build. Later that night, in their modest, comfortable home overlooking the city, Imani tucked Lena into bed. Lena snuggled under the covers, the faded plush toy clutched tight. "Daddy's proud?" she mumbled, already drifting to sleep. Imani kissed her forehead, her heart full. "More than you know, Starlight. More than you know." She stood by the window, gazing at the city lights twinkling below. Each one a spark, a story, a life. Jamal's legacy wasn't just the Foundation, or the workshop, or even Lena's bright future. It was the quiet promise in Imani's heart, to keep fighting, to keep building, to keep using her intellect to protect the vulnerable. Somewhere, a single star twinkled brighter than the rest, a silent testament to a brother's enduring love, and a sister's fierce, unwavering resolve.